find the button.
Here we go. I'm glad you remembered. Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a couple more coming in. So I'll just get Danielle to pop up the slides. For those that don't know me, I am Kate Eberl. I am one of the directors of the HL7 board. I am the interoperability lead at CSIRO, and I'm also the lead coordinator for the Spark Accelerator. Thank you all for joining us today. This is the first webinar for the Sparked eRequesting Technical Design Group. And we thought it was really important to kick off with a webinar to provide just that overview of where we're at, ways of working of the Technical Design Group for eRequesting, introduce you to the co-chairs, and also hear from the clinical colleges, hear from the department, etc., before we deep dive in and kick off the first official meeting of the eRequesting TDG in a few weeks' time in early December. So before we get into it, I'd like to firstly acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're all meeting today. Here for me in Brisbane, it's the Yagara and Turrbal people, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to any First Nations people on the call with us today. So I think one of the key things we wanted to really hear from, and Jeremy, can I get a thumbs up or whether you're able to speak, or maybe we just shift the agenda around a little bit, was why Sparked and why eRequesting. But I'm not sure if Jeremy's technical is working. So no, it's not. So what we'll do is we're going to jump to a little bit of a quick Menti and find out who's on the call with us today. Hopefully in that couple of minutes, Jeremy will be able to get his technology working. If not, I'm giving a quick heads up to Dr. Chen Ho and Dr. Graham Jones that we'll jump to them next, and then we will get to hear from the department after those two presentations if Jeremy can get that working. And I think Louisa is also having trouble hearing. Is anyone else having trouble hearing, or is it just seems to be issues with the department and Zoom? Okay, so I think there's technical challenges in firewalls of the department maybe. So let's jump really quickly to a little quick Menti just to kind of get a feel. It would be nice to be able to go around the room and hear from everyone, but with 46 people on the call, that will take the whole call. So I'll jump really quickly to just a Menti. So if you on your device can join Menti at menti.com and use the code 44727406. It's always nice on the video calls to actually see what coverage, where everyone's coming in from around Australia. And sometimes we get people who join us from overseas. It's not sharing that.
Well, maybe it's just,
yeah.
Mentimeter, isn't it, Kate? Not menti.com.
It's menti.com to go to the actual presentation to interact with. So I think there's a problem with what my screen is sharing. Some people are getting it. It says my screen is paused. I'm not sure what's going on there because I know some people are able to interact with menti.com.
maybe stop sharing off Zoom.
Zoom share. Is it working for people?
It's working for me.
Okay, cool.
Yes, it's working for me.
Okay, great.
I'm afraid I can't reach this page.
That's okay. Graham, where are you? You're coming in from Sydney today, so we all know you're coming from Sydney. Am I correct?
ACT today, but that's all right.
ACT, there we go. Ah, that's really weird that it's working for some and not others. I'm not sure what's going on here.
Can people see the results come up?
Are you guys seeing results come up, or are you just seeing?
It says, please wait for presenter to show the next slide, is what I'm saying.
Wow.
I've got the Menti website. We're waiting for responses. So it's half
Oh,
stuck
so
somewhere.
I've got all the responses are coming up. Something is.
Is it run from the Department of Health?
I can see it, but I'm using my phone.
Can you share it? Try sharing again. Share it. You get.
Kate, can I just check, can you hear me while you're looking at that?
Hear you.
See,
Perfect.
Angus, the Department of Health can
It is
resolve.
working, Jeremy. You can. Oh, we can't hear you, Kate. You're on mute.
And good to get a perspective of different organisations that are joining from. This should now be sharing properly. Yes, we can see it's Denoy is working for some but not others, so that's very random. For those who are just coming into the call, the call, this webinar is being recorded so that we can share it later. And also, if you can join menti.com and use the code 44727406, just to get an understanding of the breakdown of the participants of the TDG who have joined the call.
And that code is in the meeting chat.
Thanks, Danielle. Just wait for a few more participants to respond. We've got 29 out of the 51. Okay, that's slowing down. Role and background, also really important to understand in terms of pathologists, radiologists, other requesting clinicians who might be online, those that are software developer background, architect background. One of the key things around the technical design groups is making sure that we've got that good depth and breadth of representation so that we can end up working through and coming up with a specification that's fit for purpose, and fit for purpose for clinicians, for consumers, for industry, for government. Importantly, for those who aren't aware, there's also a clinical design group that's been established, and that clinical design group has broad representation across all the clinical professions, as well as, again, all other different SMEs. And that clinical design group is looking at the clinical data requirements. So there is both, and that really will provide those clinical requirements into the technical group, but it's also important to make sure that we have clinicians as part of the technical design group to have that flow through between both of those design groups as we go. And also importantly, who on the line is not only part of the Sparked eRequesting Tech Design Group, but is also part of the Sparked AU Core Technical Design Group, those who are part of the clinical design groups, those who are part of, and I just looked at this and realized we should have said Fire Work Group. That's my fault, Brett. I'm sorry. But the HL7 Fire Working Group, or Fire Work Group, I'm going to keep saying it, and who has been to Connect-a-thons before, and who is This Is First for Everything. Fantastic. Great to see we've got members from both the AU Core as well as the clinical design carrying through into this work as well. Okay, excellent. I will stop sharing and pass back to you, Danielle, but really I'm passing back to Jeremy now that we know that your mic can work. And if I can invite you, Jeremy, to give a brief update from the department. Why Sparked? Why are you requesting? What are the policy drivers behind this?
Thanks, Kate. So welcome, everyone. Just double check you can hear me after my technical glitch to start. All right, excellent. So I guess I'd like to also start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands in which we're all meeting today from across Australia. And I didn't see anyone there overseas, did I? We're all in Australia, aren't we? I think so on this particular meeting. Why Sparked? Why eRequesting? It's an interesting question, and I just noted in that previous Menti we just did that there's a few new people here today that haven't been through this little journey over the last few months with a few of us. So unfortunately, some of you may hear what I have to say for the second, third, fourth, or fifth time. And I apologise to those of you that have heard this, but for those of you that haven't, I'm just going to give a quick bit of background. So why eRequesting? It's a really important context question here, right? We have, as most of you would know, the department has been investigating eRequesting in some form for some time now. It's not a new thing that we're looking into. It actually stems back to COVID days and the work in COVID where we rolled out the e-prescribing platform nationally. It was a really interesting time for the department to try a different way of service, an online digital platform that has been a resounding success. There's lots of things we've learned from that, things that we'd like to improve, but overall a huge success in the e-prescribing space. But coming out of COVID, the government wanted to then investigate, so how could we use that experience in e-prescribing and sort of look forward to expanding the idea into initially diagnostic imaging. And at the time, we brought forward the modernisation of diagnostic imaging project, which looked at how could you take the learnings from e-prescribing and replicate that in diagnostic imaging as an e-request for diagnostic imaging. And that project went for 18 months, 2 years. It was a really interesting discussion around the how, the why, the what. But the result of that project was the most interesting part of it, and that is we got to a point where we realised the foundations are just not in place yet to be able to have a national e-requesting platform the way the government was envisaging it. There was obviously a lot of call out in that conversation for the need, the want, and the timing was all there, but the foundations in which you would build a platform like that just wasn't quite right. So, forward to the recent budget, and the government brought forward an idea to look at all of diagnostics and to actually get the foundations right. And that the government listened to the department and have funded what we think is a really foundational and clever approach to getting our base right for what a national repeatable e-requesting and e-referral service will eventually be. That foundation is actually around FHIR. It's the genesis of the Spark program. So I'll talk about Spark in a moment, but it goes to why we're doing e-requesting right now, because what the government funded in that budget approach was to get our foundations right with a FHIR standard initially, and then to build out from that a series of programs, one of which being, and the first of which being e-requesting. So we are currently working in the department on two parallel pieces of work, one of which is our FHIR standards, ergo this conversation, and the Sparks program and the e-requesting implementation guide, which is the first of the sort of sanctioned national implementation guides that the government wanted to endorse in parallel with the AU Core. And then in the other part of the project that we're working in is what does a national e-requesting program look like for diagnostics? So how do we look at pathology and diagnostic imaging now and build up what will be a repeatable and national approach to requesting that is patient-focused, that provides clear choice and puts that choice back into consumers' hands, that supports industry and supports requesting clinicians, that supports both the pathology and the DI industries to do what they need to do to get the patient's data in a digital format and at the point of care when and where it's needed, and then provides the pathway for what will be a repeatable process. So going to then referrals, and then going to bringing even prescribing on board, looking at allied health in the future, for example. The bigger picture here for us is a whole of health approach to requesting, and a whole of health approach to a patient-centered care. So that's, I guess, the call out from the department here. That's the why e-requesting. That's why we're doing what we're doing right now. And why we've picked Spark is because well, we think fire is the foundation that needs to happen at the start of this conversation to enable the interoperability, to enable the data to move in a way that's sensible, in a way that's trusted, in a way that's contemporary, and that's going to allow the vision that the department and the government have on what a future healthcare system will look like. So we're putting a lot of energy across the department into making sure that people understand the value of fire, making sure that people understand where it could take us, but also understanding where we need to start, and that this is going to be a long journey. We are right at the very, very start of that journey. It's an extremely exciting time. We do think that we've got it right. We do think that the government is in a position to really start to think in an exciting sort of futuristic way now about what they could do, as opposed to the piecemeal policy approach that we've possibly had in the past, where you kind of do a little bit of things over here in digital and you do a few things over there in digital, but you can't really connect the things together. This will, we're hoping, allow us to actually start thinking a bit more holistically about where we want to take healthcare. I'd also like to call out that the work that's being done in diagnostics in the connectathon space in fire already is not going to waste. There's a lot of people that are doing a lot of smart things in this country. There's a lot of people that have been doing a lot of thinking on what e-requesting in various parts of the system could look like, both in public and private settings. We want to take all of those ingoing thought processes and developments and so forth, and work out how we can develop this into a national approach, a national consistent approach. So I want to sort of pay tribute to all the people that have come before in this context in doing all of that thinking and trailblazing that conversation, because a lot of you are online today, and a lot of you have really laid the path to what's possible for us now and what we're going to try to achieve over the next 2 years. And that's probably my time, Kate. I'm surprised you haven't cut me off already, but I'll hand back to you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jeremy. And we do have one question. Phil, you've got your hand raised, and feel free for everyone else to pop questions in the chat as well. Phil.
Sure. And Kate, tell me if you want me to do questions through the chat also. Jeremy, one quick question for you. So I know that HL7V2 has been used a lot for pathology and radiology ordering, at least in the hospital space. So walk us through if there's been thought processes on why only fire instead of both, you know, what was missing from HL7V2 or that thought process also, so we have that background.
Yeah, okay. So why have we picked fire over others? It's a good question. It's a long answer. There's been a lot of people input into these conversations over the last sort of 2 years. A lot of experts have sort of provided their thought on where our current state has got us to, but where the limitations then sort of sit on where we can go next. V2 has been very appropriate to date. It's served us well, and I think that a lot of people have got a lot of thoughts and a lot of views, and probably a lot of passionate views on V2. My perspective of this is probably less technical and more from a business flow perspective and a business to government and clinical perspective. I think that the limitations that we've been shown in V2 are there. Fire overcomes a lot of those limitations, but one of the things that I'm aware of is what we've had at the moment is, particularly in the public space, is a lot of point-to-point solutions that don't provide an avenue for a holistic connection. They don't provide the ability to have a truly connected healthcare setting. So a patient's care journey starts and stops at each of its connection points. It can't. A patient hasn't got the ability now, unless they want to carry reams of paper with them, to really truly take their healthcare information with them from care setting to care setting to care setting, irrelevant of where they're going, whether it be public, private, you know, northern state, southern state, green provider, blue provider. They're really constrained to being within small ecosystems. What we want to really look at here, and where we're looking at as far as the future of healthcare as far as the department's concerned right now, is we want to be looking at a connected healthcare system. The future has to be a patient taking their healthcare information with them to care settings in a way that makes sense for them, in a way that's easy for them. And for it to be easy for the consumer, it's also got to be easy for the clinicians. And we note that clinicians do work across multiple care settings. You don't have a doctor anymore sitting just in one organisation. Most of our clinicians work across multiple avenues, whether that be across the public and private domains, or whether that be across private to private and so forth. So we're looking at FHIR as being a solution to help us overcome a lot of those broader connectivity issues, and to actually get true standardization. We're not looking at just standards, we're looking at standardization. I don't know if I've fully answered your question, Phil, but that's probably all I've got in my bagpipe at the moment, considering I've just gone back from leave.
Thanks for that. I think we'll tease out more over time. Sorry, Kate.
No, not a problem. Thanks, Phil, for the question, and thanks, Jeremy. In the interest of time, if we could then move on to the next agenda item, and if I could invite Dr. Chien Ho to provide an update from Ranska, please.
Thanks, Kate. I can probably just move to the next slide, and I'll start talking to that slide. So by way of background and history, the college has been working in the space for a while now. Back in 2004, through the quality use of diagnostic imaging program, through to working with ADIA on the roadmap to support image sharing, and also to the white paper, to the current work that's being done on the radiology referral set. So it's certainly an exciting time to be involved, and I think the college is looking very much looking forward to this this initiative. Can I have the next slide, please? So just this is a busy slide, but I'll just talk to this in terms of outlining the two principles of clinical input and leadership and co-design, which I think the college sees as going hand in hand. And much of what we've covered, I think Jeremy has succinctly covered already, and it's very much aligned. So in terms of the clinical input and oversight, I think it's important for understanding and focusing on the key clinical needs, and importantly the challenges that are encountered on a day-to-day basis by clinicians and clinical service providers, including radiology and I'm sure pathology as well, in meeting those needs. I think that having that oversight from end to end is useful to really have a digital health solution that is usable and relevant and useful and fit for purpose, in other words. The clinical governance that will underpin this process from the clinical perspective is important, I think, in terms of building trust and confidence for all stakeholders in a safe, high quality digital solution that can be delivered in that way. In terms of the co-design principles, I think there's a broad understanding that they should focus on an equal and reciprocal relationship between all stakeholders, working in partnership. And this means planning, designing, and producing services with those who have lived experience of the challenges and issues and of the service in general, so that the final solutions can meet the needs of the stakeholders. And finally, as mentioned before, seeking consumer and clinical input from the outset is important in helping and having consumers and clinicians define the problem and just help design the solution. Next slide, please. This final slide is really just to introduce some of the design considerations, which are obviously just the starting point. We are, as Jeremy's pointed out, right at the start of this process. But things that, from a clinical lens, are important include an ability for patients to choose a provider. The referral must contain adequate patient identification and safety information, particularly medications, allergies, implants, and I'm sure many of my clinical colleagues would agree, things like access to pathology results for renal function and things like that are really important to be able to access easily. Contact information is important. The referral must adequately identify the referrer and how to contact that referrer in the case of routine communications, as well as in the case of urgent or unexpected or serious communications that are illnesses or diagnoses that need to be communicated. Clinical information, obviously the referral must contain adequate, appropriate and relevant clinical notes and a clear statement of purpose of the request. It sounds obvious and glib, but this is a problem that it's encountered day to day for all clinicians in terms of getting adequate and accurate referral. There are two additional considerations I haven't listed, but in the interest of time, I'll just mention them. They are, as pointed out, connectivity and interoperability, and also smooth integration into clinical workflow that's suitable for current practice. As Jeremy's pointed out, many clinicians practice at multiple sites now, and that is often a challenge in terms of the portability and ability to be flexible in that regard. So with that, I would have the next slide, please. That's the end of our formal part of the presentation, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ho. I'll just double check, see if there's any, there
are several, yep, in the chat.
No specific questions, I think, relating to Dr. Ho's presentation. More around kind of workflow and everything more broadly, but very important points, Dr. Ho, around ensuring that we've got good, strong clinical leadership and co-design, and that is absolutely one of the key elements around this program, is making sure through the clinical design group, broader clinical engagement, and into the TDG that we support that. So thank you very much for that presentation. And could I invite Dr. Graham Jones to provide the perspective from the pathology perspective? Thank you.
Look, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and talk to you all today. I suspect this should really be a perspective from pathology, because I'm sure there's many other views, and there's been a lot of work there. So I'm a chemical pathologist at St Vincent's in Sydney. I have sat on multiple college IT committees, but what we've got today is essentially my view of where things are, informed by the college, but not speaking necessarily on their behalf. Sorry, next slide, please. This is going to be a little bit noisy. So what we've had there, and this is what you guys go through every time you go to the doctor, you see them, the doctor may decide to request pathology or not. They actually do the requesting with some process, usually online now. You get your sample collected, it comes to us, we do our magic, and then that information is transferred to the doctor, and more commonly to the patient, and then back to the doctor and patient to make medical decision. I'll just pause here and thank Dr. Ho for his summary, because really everything I'm saying, everything that he said, I agree with. Clinical need, leadership, the need to integrate into workflow, capturing the information. So there'll be a bit of repetition, but what he said is very good. So I'll just say, click please. So the key point can be seen as information transfer. However, before that, click again. The process of requesting, that needs to be done in a timely, easy manner within the workflow. Next click. Before that, is the doctor's decision to request pathology, and herein lies decision support. And if we're going to have a distributed decision support, then we need to have the appropriate coding of the information and enable to do that. Next click. Even just getting the sample collected, if that information is all available at the place you go to get it collected, that's another a potential error that's being avoided. Next click. and then transferring back, which can close the loop. And when that often doesn't happen in the current system. So getting all those things to work very well. Next slide, please. I don't have any more of those multiple clicks. So the requesting overview. So at the moment, certainly my view is pathology requesting is a potential point of failure, and actually it's an actual point of failure. There is room for improvement in patient care by doing this better. Just simple things like identifying the patient, making sure that that's the right patient with the right sample, and that does go wrong sometimes. Accurate transfer or collecting and transfer of information. My collection of doctors' handwriting and how bad that is very hard. Even when it's typed and our people try and read it, they trying to get that from the collecting system, the doctor system into patient system, very difficult. And clinical notes using terminology which we're not necessarily familiar with at the data entry stage. Wrong test requests can lead to missed tests, wrong tests, and missed collections if it's not put out. So there's plenty of things that can go wrong. Just a brief summary of the environment. And I describe it as, and it's an old term, I think, many to many. There's many sending environments. It's been raised about hospitals. I guess I'm thinking mainly general practices. There's many different general practice software. But once we talk about hospitals, that's a whole area of just different software systems, different practices, different workflows, all of which need to be able to send the same message and have the same structure. We've then got many receiving systems. Every path lab is different. We've got different computer systems. We've got different coding, different history. And just the last point I've made there is currently, in our lab anyway, we still receive a lot from GPs on paper. They're printed out and we retype it. How stupid is that? But the key point is it's changing. And it's the point of change is when it's the best time to introduce new technologies. Trying to disrupt what's already in place, I think, is hard. Next slide, please. So standardization, what this job is doing, in my point of view, is absolutely required for a functioning e-environment. Otherwise, we get, I think what Dr. Ho mentioned, is just something going from one type of requester to one kind of receiver, and that's not the environment that the modern Australian healthcare works in for a range of reasons. We need the things that he talked about there. We need the same message formats, test identifiers, what group of tests, and patient identifiers that are appropriately universal, not only to match up with pathology systems, but as he mentioned, that it goes back to the radiology systems, that it feeds back into pharmacy systems so that they can have those feedback loops. And other things, the clinical notes, and I've put question marks, but they shouldn't be, the indications for Medicare compliant testing so that that works. Are there any particular clinical questions the doctor has? Why is this patient hyponatremic? And we also need to have a system with some laxity. What are there, if there are tests for which there isn't a code, they're not under Medicare, they're new tests, there needs to be a workaround for those as well. Next slide. So just to recognise where we are in the college for the moment, and if I'm ever asked about this, I just Google RCPA PITIS, and there is a vast amount of coding for test names, test codes, unit structure of all those things, and that's been the product of over 15 years by the college. It's publicly available, and we absolutely encourage pathology labs and others to use them. SNOMED as a requesting code, obviously within the structure of the message. I think it's not used often at the moment, and actually I see this as a potential advantage. If we can standardize things at the beginning, that is a tremendous opportunity. LOINC is being used somewhat, and that is for resulting, and that's good, but it means that we need to manage changes if it's already being used. An HL7 message is widely used, but I suspect that we have still high variability in all of these aspects in current practice at the moment. Next slide, please. So issues. The things that we need to do to make this all work. Certainly in starting with pathology, all of our IT systems are different. They have different capacities, different structures internally. We're using different codes, and we need to get on board to make that work. We've got to talk about transition processes. If you've only got one space for a code and you change it in one place, what are the downstream consequences of that? Managing those changes is something that, to me, I actually find quite frightening, but is something we need to do. We need to have a way of handling non-coded requests. We've got well over a few thousand different types of pathology tests. We're not going to get them all. Even once we've coded them, then we've got to find ways of keeping both sending systems and receiving systems up to date. Otherwise, they'll just start falling apart. And I guess that last line there is really about, we won't get it all right the first time. We want to be better than 80-20, but 95-5 might be where we can go. Next slide, and I think that might be my last. So with pathology requesting standardization, A, it's very important. B, the college is fully on board. C, laboratories want to be on board, but there are lots of limitations that we need to work through, and there's many factors to get right. And just additionally, the other benefits factors to close the loop, to be able to know that something's been requested and a result's got back, and therefore we can identify things that are missing. Getting results to patients and the many, many different locations they end up with, whether that's My Health Record, radiology systems, pharmacy systems, hospital outpatients, specialists, they're seeing different GPs. And the last one there would be uniform decision supporting at requesting. And I think that's the end of my slides, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks so very much, Graham, for that. Another excellent summary of the importance of also having clinical leadership from the beginning to help drive it and the outcomes that we want to receive from this. So thank you for that. Danielle, can I hand over to you to, no, perspectives from industry. Sorry, I'm jumping right ahead of myself. Can I throw to you, Angus and Andy, to give the perspective from the industry side? Thank you.
Where to go first, Andy? Sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Angus Miller. I work at Sonic Healthcare. I'm an integration analyst, so do lots of work with data going in and out of Sonic. So Sonic's probably one of the largest, at least in the private space, the largest user of the older HL7 version 2 messages for ordering for pathology. So in some of our states, it's up to 70% of our work comes in through electronic orders through the older standard. But we also really appreciate that FHIR is going to have a huge impact over the next few years. We're already fielding requests from many companies who want to connect to us, who come to us, and they want to do it with FHIR, and they've got some sort of FHIR interface already. But for us, that's somewhat problematic because a lot of those implementations that they come with aren't based in any sort of Australian standard. Like they're using FHIR, but they've just sort of put it together how they saw fit at the time. And that's going to be problematic for us in the long term. We can't make many FHIR. We want to put most of our effort into the initial phase of guardrails for Australia, so standardised in Australia, because then we'll maximise our development spend in the long term. We can try and build one FHIR ordering solution, not one for each vendor who comes to us with FHIR, which in a way is what happens with V2. Like V2, there is an Australian standard, but it's sort of not very well followed, and what we end up getting is multiple different V2 interfaces to different systems. So the more we can prevent that, the better. The other thing is, we're a large healthcare company, and I think all healthcare companies is you need to start this journey. Like, at least my view is this isn't going away. This FHIR stuff's going to come, and it's going to start over, swamping you. It's swamping the US, and you need to get on board. So you need to start sometime. So that's another big thing for us is we need to start. We need to start getting involved. We're not going to be amazing when we start, but we're going to build up skills and resources over time and become much better at it. The longer we wait, the poorer we'll be. So modernizing. So the old standards are old. They're from the 80s. They're very message based. They've done us very well, but they're very archaic. They're very health proprietary. They're only found in healthcare. V2 messages, you don't see them in any other industry. You don't see anything like them in other industries. University students, new employees we get that come out of universities, you show them a HL7 version 2 message and they've never seen it. They don't know how to send it. It's not a structure they know. So FHIR is an opportunity for us to modernize that. It's built on JSON, it's RESTful architectures, all things university students are taught. So when they come out of uni, they already have those base skills. They don't have HL7 version 2 base skills. So alignment's another big one for us. We've already been involved a lot with this project and sort of groundwork in doing this. So, this is where reality comes in. Like we actually need it to work, and we have working V2 interfaces today. And so there's a data model in that V2 message. Put the V2 aside, just the data that's in it. that's what we do today. It works somewhat, and it works quite well for us. So for us, the new standard has to be very appreciative of that current reality. Like the process of ordering pathology didn't just suddenly change overnight because fire came along. It's the underlying standard that changed. So we need to be appreciative of the older standard and trying to bring that forward. Like those data elements don't just disappear because we've got fire. So especially for Sonic, that alignment with the old V2 message is a very important aspect to us. You can't just ignore it. I think especially a lot of the CDA work kind of just ignored the current reality and just built a new reality and then found it difficult to implement in reality. Solving patient choice. So at the moment, there is no electronic ordering for patient choice. If you're given a Sonic form, but you choose to go to one of our competitors, that competitor can't get that order in electronic form. So you automatically, by making that patient choice, which is your right, you've automatically downgraded your experience somewhat and added a bit of risk in data transfer, because now it's just a paper process. So there's typo issues and stuff when they enter that in, and that's just because you made your patient choice to go somewhere else. So this trying to solve patient choice, that the electronic order can transverse across providers no matter which one the form was directed at, is important. Or fire, the sort of approach with fire, having order repositories, gives us great further opportunities to innovate, because now we have data in a repository with a known API across it. And that's not just the fire eRequesting pattern we came up with. It's like the fire standard sitting on that repository. So now, once we get on the top of that hurdle, you can now look at, you have a queryable order repository of order data. And that means we can start building clinical decision support systems on top of that. Like, that's really the mountain we're going to see once we've climbed this mountain. We're going to stand on top of this one, and now you're just going to see clinical decision support everywhere, because there's a known API onto that data, and that data sits in these repositories. So Fire's already solved those problems in an architecture sense. There's CDS hooks. We can start querying that data to make decisions as you order. And so we can't do that with V2. Like, we could do that with V2, but V2 hasn't got that sort of built into it, where Fire does. We just accidentally get that by doing this project. We get the capability to. We can't do this alone. So Sonic, we can't make a national standard at Sonic and demand that you all use it. Like, we all need to come together and do this together. We need all the diagnostic vendors and providers and GPs to help. Like, if you stand back, you're kind of like you're not going to include your experience into the process. It could be more difficult to you when this actually eventuates, because your decisions weren't considered. So and that's not just problematic for you, it's problematic for us, because now if you haven't participated and it's an issue for you to do this in the long term, that's a problem for us. So and that's the same for all of us. So the more everyone participates, the better this will be. So come and participate. That's all I've got. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks so much, Angus. Andy, would you like to add to that?
Not a great deal. So I've been working with Angus for a good while now to deliver 5O's eRequesting in production. Working for Magentis, which operates the Genie and Gentoo PMSs. Got lots of experience now with eRequesting and looking both at the pathology and radiology spaces. We see a lot of upside to it in terms of better clinical experience, and that's what's driving all of this investment, is actually enhancing the ability to deliver a better service to our customers, who are the specialists in the most part, few GPs. And we think that the foundational architecture of Fire gives us a lot more concrete building blocks, as Angus said, innovation and delivering a better service. So yeah, it's all good. We've got, we're not starting from scratch. We, as I say, have a version of this in production now, and it is really then building on those capabilities and enhancing it towards something which represents a national agreement. And I think we've got lots and lots of opportunity here to do good stuff. And obviously, requesting is one, results is another, but Fire can help us in all sorts of building blocks, and finally achieving some greater sense of interoperability.
Thanks so much, Andy. Just checking the chat. There's lots of commentary, but I haven't seen any additional questions come in yet. Danielle, back to you. So I'm hoping now that, you know, everyone who's joined on the call have joined on because they've signed up to be part of the eRequest TDG. I'm hoping now that you've heard from Dr. Ho and Dr. Jones and Angie and Angus that you guys are still committed and can see the value to get actively involved in developing this national implementation guide. So to that end, Danielle, I think you're going to give an update along with the other co-chairs around ways of working for the tech design group.
I am. We're going to do a little bit of an introduction because the first technical design group meeting where we get a bit more into our business is on the 7th of December. So we're going to take this opportunity of the introductory webinar to, I guess, say hi and do a little bit of scene setting here. So you've already heard from Andy and Angus and Jeremy. For those of you who don't know me, I am with CSIRO. I'm the Fire Sparked lead. I have a long history at the Australian Digital Health Agency, and Angus has kindly forgiven me for a lot of the CDA specifications he was talking about. Which is some of the work that I've done in the past, and I work closely with the HL7 Australia fire standardisation and also in the international space. So I'm going to do a little bit of introduction here for the technical design group. So we've talked a lot about why are we doing this, where is this coming from? There's a clinical design group. There is a wider program in which this sits, and why you're invited today to this and what you've really signed up for is to get us to a requesting implementation guide, to take through that standardization, to take in those concerns that we've heard around what are the things that we really need to address, what do we need to pay attention to, and take that through understanding that we have these systems in place, we have a long legacy, and come together and work through this in order to define our requirements and specifications in order to support that interoperable requesting and ordering in Australia, which I've just echoed our mission, because that is what we're set up to do. This is what we're looking at, and we're kicking off here with our diagnostic space, looking at our pathology, looking at our diagnostic imaging radiology space. And so this technical design group is a HL7 Australia technical design group, specifically a fire one. So we are a technical subcommittee and we're under the governance of the HL7 Australia Fire Working Group. And that overarching group, the fire working group, sits across all the others. So there's an AU Core Fire, there's an AU Core Technical Design Group, there are other ones, and the fire working group sits across all the fire standards for Australia. And they provide that governance level. I'm also a member of that. You'll find that a lot of people are members. If you're interested in joining that because you want to get involved in wider fire projects, that's great. You can email me or any of the other co-chairs and we'll let you know on how you can get involved. I think I want to call out here and set some of the scene around how do we work together. So a lot of this is going to be meetings, and the meetings are primarily Zoom calls. So we're going to have fortnightly Zoom calls. I'll talk about those a little bit more in the next couple of slides, and potentially we'll try to target quarterly face-to-face. So the Zoom calls are around 1 hour. The quarterly face-to-face will be tied with the clinical design group, where we'll do a one-day session of the clinical design group and a one-day session of the technical design group. And also, so when you get the invites for the quarterly one, those will come out by email in advance. I think we're targeting something maybe around February next year. So I'm going to tell people in advance. You should have already received a getting started email, which gave you like a list of things in which we want to sign up to. And I really want to stress those here. Please sign up for a HL7 account. That's a HL7 international one, because without it, you're going to miss out on a whole lot of interesting things. We've got the calendar there. I'm going to show you about the calendar, which is going to, for all the fire events, including connectathons, including the face-to-face meetings, this technical design group, free information sessions you can just drop into, talking about how do things in fire work. Let's talk about some particular concepts. And you can only really see those in the fire calendar, and you have to have a HL7 account in order to actually be able to view the calendar. If you really want to get involved in some more of the technical fire side, it really is essential that you sign up for chat.fire.org. That is where we have our discussions. We go through things, we raise questions, and we examine how could we do this particular thing, or just also do announcements around connectathons. So that's really a direct messaging forum. It's a great way to get started. It's a great way to seek advice. We have an Australia stream. There is a link for that there. But the whole international community is on that. So you're kind of getting 24-hour assistance. You post a question on there, and across the time zones all across the world, someone is there and is interested in supporting you. And next is signing up for GitHub. This is where we're actually doing the specific fire implementation guide. If you would like to directly contribute to our forthcoming fire implementation guide, raise any issues against it, you'll need a GitHub account if you don't already. Once you've done those things, visit our technical design group homepage. I expect you to get very familiar with this. This is where we have all our information, everything that's publicly available. I'll just click through now so you see what that looks like. Okay, no, that's working. Perfect. And this is our technical design group home. Anyone can see this. This is publicly available whether you're signed in or not. And it has some events on the right. It provides you with some key links off to places. It has all our meetings. It has all the interesting discussions. It'll have any of our draft documents. This is essentially the space in which we'll do work and where we'll post things. Let me just go back to this. And the next thing I just want to show here is our calendar. So that's what the calendar for November looks like. This is the HL7 Australia Fire calendar. So it has eRequesting. So this is us here, noting that I'm in Brisbane. So that time is showing the Brisbane time. If you're in a different state, when you sign up for your Confluence account, for your HL7 Australia account, and visit Confluence for the first time, make sure you set your time zone. And that way, any calendar you see, it'll show the right time for you on when to join, whether it's an Australian invite, or because you have a HL7 account, you can also see some other calendars about the international groups and the international free information sessions. And you'll be able to see what time they are, which most are in the US, so they're going to be unfortunate times, but you'll be able to actually see what that means for you. And it's important to note that when you look at these, you'll also, when you click on them, you'll be able to see what the Zoom link is. Everything is open. So you do not have to be a technical design group member, although I realize everyone on the call will have signed up for that. And you can just come along to any of those, whether they're fire or about AU core, specific to eRequesting or some other location. The reason this is posted is because this is an open community. We're trying to come together, build that community and go through open standards process. So all this interaction is intended to be freely open and for people to join. Oh, and that last point there is add information sessions to your own calendar if you're interested to see them. We're trying not to overwhelm you with invites. So we do have the invites for the fortnightly session that's come out, but we won't send out the multitude of potential information sessions that are being offered that are free for you to go to. So you'll need to look at the HL7 AU Fire calendar in order to see what's available and decide which ones you want to go to. I'm going to talk a little bit more about meetings. Sorry.
Time.
Is there a comment?
Off to run your rounds of the town.
Maybe mute if you don't have a question.
Have a great time.
So the working group, and that really includes the meetings as well. We operate under HL7 AU practices. Now, I've linked through to the HL7 Australia governance. If you want to, you can go read that. That talks through the practices, that talks through our overall approach, including our decision-making framework, which is really based around Robert's rules, what the quorum is for meetings, what does it mean if you vote there. It also talks about standardization and how does all of that work. And if you have any questions on that, please email one of the co-chairs, email Andy or Angus, myself, or Jeremy, and we will get back to you. I want to talk also a little bit about what does it mean to participate in openness, and that really does include the meetings. So our agendas will be posted on the Confluence in advance, but so will what we call meeting minutes. And those meeting minutes will include a list of everyone who attended. We will also look at decision making, including who might have motioned or seconded and what the count of the votes were to have an outcome. And really the minutes are about recording who attended, what did we discuss, what were the decisions, what were the outcomes in any actions, so we can move forwards. Again, the Zoom links to a particular call are visible from the calendar. If you've lost your invite or don't have a calendar invite in your Outlook calendar or the tool you're using, you can go navigate from the meetings page on the Confluence, and also from the HL7AU Fire calendar will show that. The quarterly meetings will also have their agendas posted to the Confluence, and the minutes, same kind of thing. It's just that we will advise as we get closer to organising when those face-to-face will be via email and ask you to register for a place on where you're coming. They will be in different locations around Australia. I think our next one is Melbourne. If I'm wrong, please speak up, Kate.
No, it is February next year in Melbourne.
Perfect. Excellent. And so these are our next Zoom calls. So 7th of December, I've put the time, most of the time zones for Australia here. I know we're going across multiples of them. So this has shifted a little from the original email that was sent out some time ago so that we can accommodate Perth. We want Perth people to be able to do this within work hours. So what we're going to be doing is running them at 12 p.m. on the Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, which means 11 for Brisbane and therefore 9 a.m. for Perth. We have these two scheduled. I've put the Zoom link also in here. Okay, handing out for questions.
There are no additional detailed questions. There's one question from Andrew Patterson with a chain that I can see Angus has started to answer. And maybe Andrew, for the interest of time, I think that's one that probably can get unpacked in the next meeting and offline as well, if that's okay with you, Andrew. Really important question. And then just some commentary around sending out all the information via email again, because some people didn't get these details via the email chain and the rest. So we will make sure that we send out to all those registered for the TDG, those that couldn't make it today, the link to the recording for this, as well as the slide deck will be on the Confluence page. So we'll have a link to where that slide deck is, and just all of the different groups to make sure that everyone's aware of how to make sure that they're on the list, they're registered and get all the appropriate emails. In the interest of time, we have gone 1 minute over. I can't see any other burning questions that are coming through. Thank you everyone for joining in this morning. Thank you to all of our speakers. Hopefully we've encouraged not only all of you on the call to make sure that you come back in December for the first official meeting, but also that you forward on to others in your network that you believe should be at the table and be actively involved. Encourage them to sign up to the eRequesting TDG and join the fun. It is fun, I promise. So thank you to everyone, and we look forward to seeing those of you that are coming to Connect on next week and the rest of you online shortly. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.